everyone! Tonight I'm back and I want to talk about something that many parents often go through. Some parents go through it once in a while and some go through it multiple times a day. I want to talk about what to do when your child has a meltdown. Now obviously every child is different and meltdowns can occur for various reasons, but from my experience and research, most of the time meltdowns occur for one of the following reasons. 1, the child wants something that he or she can't have or can't communicate that he or she wants. 2, the child is trying to escape or avoid an activity that's challenging or that he or she doesn't want to do. Or 3, the child's sensory system is overloaded and the child is just way overstimulated. Now for the first type of meltdown, when a child wants something he or she can't have, especially if you've already told the child that he or she can't have that item or whatever it is, the one rule of thumb is don't give in and be consistent. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to be consistent with not giving in. Basically, if you don't give in most of the time and you let your child have a tantrum and you don't give them what they want and you let them cry it out, but then once in a while, let's say once every 5 or 10 times, you decide you're gonna give in to your child because you just can't take the crying anymore or it's just been too much for you, then basically what you're telling your child is, I can cry more and I will get what I want. So not only are you not helping eliminate that tantrum behavior, but you're actually helping strengthen the behavior because you're telling the child that he just has to cry more and more and more and eventually you'll give in. So again, like I said, be consistent and don't give in. That's the number one rule for when your child wants something and you've decided he or she can't have it. You need to stick with what you've told them. Now I know this can be hard, and you're probably thinking, well, okay, if I don't give in, what can I do? There are many different things you can do, and this is where the individual child really comes to play because different children may react differently. You may be able to redirect your child pretty quickly to do something else or to have something else. Maybe that's just a different item. You may need to let your child just have some time to calm down as long as he or she's in a safe space before you can talk to your child or allow him or her to express maybe what he's feeling or what it is that he would like to do instead. There are lots of different things. You might be able to just comfort your child if that's something he or she responds to well. You are the one who knows your child best and you would want to work directly with your child's individual therapists to determine a more specific plan of action. But what I said earlier is kind of the rule of thumb for what to do in that case of a meltdown. The next trigger I often see causing a meltdown or a tantrum is when a child is trying to avoid an activity that's really challenging or that he or she just doesn't want to do. And in this case, similarly to the previous case, you kind of have to stick with your guns a little bit and not let your child just avoid the activity because he's crying or because it's too hard. But there are many things you can do to help alleviate the tension in that kind of situation. You can maybe break down the activity and make it a little bit simpler. You can help your child complete the activity or certain components of the activity. You can wait until your child is calm before proceeding with the activity. But again, the one rule of thumb is don't let your child leave. Don't let him leave the room or escape the activity just because your child is tantruming or having a meltdown because it's an activity that he or she doesn't want to do. Now, the one scenario that I would not recommend this approach to is if the reason your child is avoiding the activity is because he or she has a very sensitive sensory system and the activity is a sensory-based activity, then I wouldn't push through it in the same way because then your child is not avoiding the activity because he or she doesn't want to and because it's too hard, but your child's sensory system is actually very overloaded and overstimulated at that time, and you can't just push through that. That is something you want to work through more specifically, especially with your child's therapists as a guide to help figure out what the best plan of action is. But that does lead me to my third reason for why children often have tantrums or meltdowns is when their sensory system is overloaded. So I would call that just sensory overload. Now, this happens when a child has a very sensitive sensory system, and for example, let's say they're extremely sensitive to textures and they're being required to do some finger painting that is extremely strenuous to their sensory system. In that situation, I wouldn't just say, okay, child, well, you need to just touch the finger paint with your finger one time, because that may be very, very much too much for your child. In that situation, you're going to want to make sure to help your child modulate or calm down his or her sensory system, and there are many things you can do to help with that process. Now, I am an OT and I work very specifically with children to prescribe sensory diets to them based on lots of evaluation and clinical observation. So obviously, I don't know your children and I can't give you a prescription sensory diet that I would give to someone I'm working with directly. However, what I can do is provide a few sort of rule of thumb calming sensory strategies that you might want to try that are generally calming to the sensory system. Some activities that are typically very calming to the sensory system are dimming the lights, some deep pressure to your child's body, so that can be either from you directly by like giving him or her some tight hugs, or if your child is sensitive to human touch, then you can also try giving him or her some deep pressure through putting a heavy blanket or pillow on top of his body. Also slow, rhythmic, consistent rocking motions are typically very calming. So being on a swing and just doing a slow back and forth, very rhythmic, predictable, consistent movement can, for a lot of children, be very calming. And also heavy work where the child is actually using his or her muscles to push against a wall, for example, or to push a heavy object, or to pull something that's resistive like an exercise band, that can also be very calming to the sensory system. Another thing you can try is to just use a really calm voice, keep it very consistent, nothing unexpected, and even just start taking some deep breaths yourself and see if your child will follow. Because a lot of times, if you ask your child if he wants to take deep breaths, then he or she just may be too overstimulated to even respond. But if you start to just do it yourself, and again, in a very sort of rhythmic, consistent pattern, the child often will use that as a model to follow and help calm him or herself down and self-regulate as well. Again, these are just very general calming strategies, but you know your child best. So if there are things that you know work very well to help your child regulate and recover from his or her meltdown, then this would be the perfect time to try those strategies. I'm sure you already are, but these would be the times to really individualize what you're doing. And also, if the tantrums and the meltdowns do persist and you're not already seeing a therapist for your child, whether it's an occupational therapist, a behavior therapist, or both, then I would really recommend that you go and consult with an OT or behavior therapist. Sometimes a child needs both, sometimes just one. It depends on where the tantrums and the meltdowns are coming from. But I would definitely go consult a professional to come up with a much more specific, individualized plan for your child. I hope you all found this information very helpful. And again, if there are any topics you want me to cover in the future, anything you're interested in or just want more information on, please feel free to email me at roxanne.s@benjamin@gmail.com. And also, please find lots of great information and ideas and articles on my Facebook page. It's facebook.com/RoxanneSBenjaminOT. And you can follow me on Twitter now as well. It's @BenjaminRoxanne. I hope you all have a great week, and I will see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye.